All right, so these are my little stamps that I made yesterday. I went in and I did quite a few different things. I played around with some tools. And I just kind of made a bunch of really random things so I could really see what I like. You guys, you know, you'll decide what you want to use. I made like a little tiny one too. I think that might be a good idea to make some different sizes. This is my test slab right here. This is not my final, obviously. It's just a piece of smushed clay. We're gonna actually be going in on our either circular tiles that are nice and rounded because you don't want any little sharp edges, or your square ones that are also really nicely smoothed. So you want a really smooth surface so that when we go in and make the textures, that's what's gonna really, you know, primarily make up a really gorgeous design. You wanna really pay attention to the craftsmanship of your piece, meaning that it's really well made, that it's really well smoothed, and everything like that. So here we go, making stamps. Super, 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 super easy. The first thing you're gonna want is a bunch of different tools. It could be ceramic tools, it could be anything that you know you kind of found laying around. And to make a stamp is super simple. Just take some of your extra clay, kind of roll it like that into almost like a Tootsie Roll type form, and then just pat it down on the table. I then like to kind of mold this up a little bit so that I have more to hold on to. And now you have a nice flat surface to work on. You can go ahead and shape these however you want to. If you want to do an oval, you can. If you want to carve away from some of the edges, you can. I'm going to go in and make this one almost like a diamond shape. So I'm just kind of pinching it. And you could always go back in and tap it down. So that would be my stamp. I have something really nice to hold on to it. Now I want to play around with different textures. So I think with this one, I'm going to use my ribbon tool, and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to make some little impressions all throughout here. Overlapping, almost looks like scales or something kind of. And remember, you guys are gonna wanna have like a nice little composition on these. So you don't have to use all the stamps that you make. But I suggest kind of playing around with it. You might find a stamp that you really love. I made a few that I thought were kind of ugly. And now I just have like a bunch of little circular patterns in there. You could make stamps as large or as small as you want to. Some of the ones that we were looking at were fairly large, and then she went in and she added her decoration using mostly a few of those larger shapes, and then for other ones she went in with these little minis. So you could make them all different shapes and sizes. Just make sure that the stamp part is really well flattened and really well crafted. You'll see like this side sometimes will stick out. Just smooth that in. And you'll have a nice little handle. Now you guys could square these off if you want as well. And I'll do that for the next one. Think about some things you have around the house. I have this little like nail that I found in the classroom, and I'm just gonna roll over, oops, let me get the grooves back in, roll over the stamp, and now I have these nice little lines. You might wanna clean it up a little bit, but already I have a kind of cool texture. If you wanna make a larger stamp, always the same technique. Just make sure that you are smoothing out any little areas where your coil might have started separating, because you do want that nice area to hold on to. These are super simple, they're really fun, and I really encourage you guys to play around with these on a sample. Just a regular piece of clay to decide what you really want to use on your final tiles. So today's kind of stamp making, experimenting with textures, and then tomorrow and Friday we are going to work on the tiles themselves. So you should have had your tiles created yesterday. And today we're creating textures and grabbing different things for textures. Just kind of tap it out. Into a square form. And you could play around, you know, with it. Now, maybe because this is a square, I might go in and do like a bunch of little horizontal lines in it. And I think I'm gonna kind of almost like push back the clay. I'm kind of almost pushing it back like a wave. I think it might be a little hard to see. But that way, when it actually impresses into the clay, you'll have like a flat surface next to the line that's dug in. Now, you guys could make these super elaborate. You could make them, you know, really simple. But you do want to make sure that before you go in and use them, that you get rid of any of the little crumbly pieces. And that's gonna probably be once it is in the bone dry state. Just kind of go in and dust out any of those little crumbly pieces. Now maybe I'll even go in here and add a bunch of little dots. I'm just gonna do that. We'll see, maybe it'll be kind of interesting. So now I have another stamp. And if you guys want to do a very specific thing, if you want to do something, you know, natural that's looking like a leaf or something like that, you can. I'm going to go in with this one and actually kind of start to shape it like I would, almost like a little lily pad leaf. Kind of get like that teardrop form. And then I'm gonna tap it into shape again. And I'm gonna go in with this one and I'm gonna work on it to get like a little bit more of like a richer texture. You guys, I know you don't have pin tools. If you want to use like a sharp pencil, you can. But for this one, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna kind of create little lines. And you could see I get those little crumblies. Those you could just kind of dust out once it's dry. Or you could wait until it's a little bit more leather to carve into these if you want to make a few different shapes and then kind of set them aside. But I'm going to go in and I'm going to try to pick up as much as I can so I don't have to worry about cleaning it up too much later on. And this one will just have like a little bit more of like a natural flow to it. but be creative with these. So there's another stamp. So these are just some, you know, different sized little stamps, different textures in them. And I'm not really exactly sure what they're gonna look like yet because I haven't pressed them into my clay. I wanna show you guys the difference between when they're fresh and kind of leathery and when they are bone dry. You could notice the difference in the color of the clay. So you want them to be dried out before you use them, like we said, so that they don't stick to the clay. So I'm gonna put these guys over here to dry out. Now I have here my tiles that I'm actually gonna use. I don't know what I want to do with them just yet. I'm still kind of brainstorming my idea, and that's totally fine if you guys are in the same boat, because that's kind of where I am. I'm going to be actually starting to texture these in class tomorrow. In the meantime, like I said, I started stamping with some of the stamps I made and using some tools. Just flatten out a piece of clay. You guys should have some extra. And start just looking through your stamps. Like this one I made yesterday, like this is not like the prettiest stamp. I just kind of poked it with a bunch of different things. But going into this and applying pressure, and I'm gonna maybe do like a few in this area. I like to kind of overlap them sometimes too, if I want to do them in the same section so that I don't have that mark. And you could see I kind of have like this pebble-like texture forming. And from there, I could continue and branch out with some other things. Because I made a little stamp, I think I'm gonna add some of my little stamp in here to create a little bit of flow. And think about, you know, what you guys kind of have laying around. So now I have that in my piece, and I'm thinking I'm gonna go in right now with a little bit of the paintbrush. And start to fill in some of that. Maybe I'll go in also with this little pencil tip and start to make some little marks that way. So I'm starting to kind of develop different things, different textures. Some of my stamps I was quite surprised with. Like I said, I was just kind of messing around with them at the end of the school day yesterday, and these two were so simple. When I went in this morning and I impressed them into the clay, I was like, ooh, I like that. The one kind of almost looks like a little lattice or something. And even though this is such a simple design, I might even like recreate a few in like a smaller version and then incorporate that into my texture tile. So if you guys want to incorporate stamps as a large portion of your texture and then go in with tools and maybe scrape some away, I'm gonna kind of go in, and that's why I have this little practice slab. I want you guys to practice textures, play around with different stamps that you made, play around with different items that you found that you feel will make a good impression in the clay. I'm gonna tap that down because I don't want it to be sharp. And I'm just kind of playing around with this. This is meant to be like, you know, a fun, relaxing project. So there's some stuff I have going on. Like I said, for my final one, I'm gonna wanna have a plan, like a specific plan of what I wanna use. This is just showing you guys the different things that you could accomplish using the stamps. And if you have a very specific idea, like you wanna do little flowers, or maybe you even wanna do like a mandala, so you're starting in the center with something and kind of like working your way outwards, you can also do something like that. Maybe you wanna make a nice centerpiece stamp and then some little things going outward. And because a mandala is symmetrical, radial, you can, you know, use very similar stamps going all the way around. But I know I sent you guys on a little scavenger hunt the other day, and some of you posted some of the things that you found. So you can use those as well. You can also use those to create stamps. But I'm just, you know, kind of going in, experimenting. And I want you guys to really just play around with texture. All right. So you could see this is the one I was just working on now. Oh, it shows up much better on there. And then this is the one I had before. And already, like, it just, see how like it turns a slab into something just so playful, so fun. And once we glaze them with the Celadon glazes, those are very transparent, so you'll be able to see all the little different intricate designs that you guys have on there. So when we do our little glaze workshops, you could pick the different transparent colors. You could do a bunch of them. You could do like all one color scheme if you want to. And then when we fire them, we could figure out if you guys maybe want to add like a little bit of cork on the bottom and turn them into coasters. Or if you want to, we could hang some little like hooks on the back, so you could use it and hang it on the wall. But this is pretty much it for stamps. Very, very simple, but super useful, especially when creating your texture tiles. So I think that you guys will enjoy making these. They're fun. You can make as many as you want. There doesn't have to be like a super heady thought process behind it. And you get some really cool stuff. I surprised myself with that one. So, ooh, this one I like too. That was a pretty cool one. So we are just gonna play around with texture today. I want you guys to all get your stamps made and you know, start deciding what you might wanna do for tomorrow after you practice. Your stamps will probably be dried up if you're making them now. They should be dried up by later today, and you could just practice in some extra clay that you got lying around for those.